listening to Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It's the Coffee Hour.
It's
isn't
the.
it? Sorry.
How long have we been doing this?
I don't know. You're listening to the Coffee Hour. It is Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday?
No, it's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Remember, we recently had this discussion about words that are hard to say.
It's true.
Speaking of words that are hard to say, I was recently reading through some really good stuff on creation.
Oh, that was a nice segue.
There were a bunch of words that were really hard to say, and I'm glad that I don't have to say them because we have the expert on today to share those words. So I'm excited because there's a really good, a really interesting event coming up, sponsored by Missouri Association for Creation, coming up in just a couple of weeks here in St. Louis, called Adam's Children. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Those aren't hard words to say.
Not at all. Adam's Children. That's easy. I can say that. It's the Hebrew origin of my name, Andrew Adam. See? I can say those words. Those are easy.
Wow.
Another fun event coming up in St. Louis as well, Brew in the Lou, supporting Lutheran Elementary School Association. That's coming up very soon as well. So we'll chat about that here in just a little bit as well on the Coffee Hour. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu. Joining us by phone today, Dr. Todd Wood from Core Academy of Science and presenter at the Missouri Association for Creation's workshop called Adam's Children. Dr. Wood, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Tell us about your research on human fossils and what you're looking for when you're studying human fossils.
Yeah, some of the things that I'm looking for in human fossils are things that would indicate, what is humanity and how do I recognize it in the fossil record? What do these fossils mean for our understanding of the flood? What do they mean for our understanding of the Tower of Babel? What do they mean for the understanding of how the earth recovered after the flood? All of those kinds of questions get wrapped up into my studies of human fossils and where they're found and what they're like.
Tell us about the some of the work that you've done. This is so so fascinating, and so many things I want to know. But some of the work that you've done on human fossils.
Yeah, I've been working on human fossils now for about a decade, and I've really been examining fossils and trying to understand what is human and what is not. That's been mostly my interest. And then, of course, once I have some sense of what is human, then I try to figure out, well, what does this mean for the flood? So one of the things that I find is that humans in the fossil record tend to be way more diverse than humans are today. So we look around at our different ethnic groups that we have today, and we're all, well, deep down, we're all pretty similar. But when you get to the fossil record, you find human beings that are much different than what we have around today, which is fascinating. And then, of course, genetically, we find out that I'm carrying genes of these ancient Neanderthal peoples. And so, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for humanity? What does it mean for the image of God? It's a fascinating field to study.
Mm-hmm.
The term Adam's children or Adam's descendants, I thought about that for a minute. I was like, oh, wait, that's everybody.
That's literally everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
So why choose those terms? I have an idea, but why choose those terms, Adam's children?
Well, Adam's children have a history, right? How we got to where we are today. A lot of that is recorded in historical documents and historical records, and some of that is discernible from the archaeological record. And then there's this whole realm of fossils that go even farther beyond what we know from our recorded history. So the question is, who are these people and how did they get there? Why do we have people in Asia that seem to be, living on little stone tools and whatever they can hunt? How does that relate to the Tower of Babel? And that's been the focus of my research. And so it made sense for us to sort of focus on Adam's children and what the history of those people mean for us today and meant for biblical revelation back in their own time.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you've learned? I mean, we only have, another 8 minutes or so, but
right.
Dissertation in 6 minutes or less.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
What are some of the highlights of the things that you've learned?
Well, one of the things that I've learned, and it's been really exciting, you listen to the basic evolutionists talk about the evolution of humanity, and he'll be telling you about how the fossil record shows all these transitional forms, and it's really clear, and it's so obvious we can call it a fact. And what I found, probably the principal discovery I've just found, is that that's not exactly right. You can actually put things in categories. Now, it's not always easy because some fossils are pretty fragmentary and some fossils, there's not very much of it. And so it's hard to say what you're looking at. But on the whole, you can tell the difference between a human being in the fossil record and an animal in the fossil record, which I think is pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I found that is exciting to me, looking at the diversity of humanity in the fossil record, I'm reminded to not judge what is human just by what I look like. It's so easy for us in the modern world to think of humanity as what I am and how I think, and to sort of look down on people who might disagree with me about any number of things. And so when I look in the fossil record and I see human beings that are so different from what I look like, it reminds me I should be careful about how I approach other people and how I think about other people, because they're made in God's image also.
That's very insightful.
Yeah.
What do other scientists, many scientists, find difficult in the history of human origins? You mentioned evolutionary scientists earlier. What do many scientists today find difficult in the history of human origins?
Well, I think the biggest thing that causes the biggest controversies is the fact that we're dealing with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So it's one thing to study plants, crop plants, or animals, or jellyfish, or stuff like that, fruit flies. That's very impersonal because that's not us. But when you get to something like us and our origins and our history on this planet, suddenly it becomes very personal, right? It becomes very, it hits right at home. And as people, then, we have a lot invested in our own worldview and in our own biases and the way we think about the world. And as Christians, we trust our lives and our future and our eternity to Jesus Christ and his death, and that relates to then our own sinfulness, and that brings us back to Genesis. And where did that sinfulness begin, and what is the punishment for sinfulness? And that brings us back to Genesis. And so these things become very personal to creationists, but they also become personal to evolutionists, right? Because they're banking on the idea that, well, there is no ultimate. So atheistic evolutionists, let's be very clear about this. They're banking on the idea that there's no ultimate accountability here. When they die, they think they're just going to turn back to, they're going to rot and turn back to dust and get recycled into other organisms. And the idea that somehow there is a God who is expecting something from them and has the only way to eternal life, that can be very convicting and very challenging. And so you can find, heated ideas all the way around when you bring up the idea of human origins and what it means and how we ought to interpret it.
Absolutely. And something that you've mentioned a few times is the difference between a human fossil and an animal fossil, and being able to tell is how can you tell? Are there differences that me as a non-scientist would understand the differences between the two? Because that's such an interesting.
In a minute and a half.
Yeah, that's such an interesting concept.
No problem. Well, that's going to be one of the things that we're going to talk about at our workshop. I'm going to be showing a lot of the work that I've done and how the process goes to understand the difference between a human fossil and a non-human fossil. And the coolest part is I'm bringing a large collection of really high-quality replicas that have been generated from actual scans of fossils, so people can actually look at these things for themselves and make up their own minds. You don't have to take my word for it. I can show you right here. Here's the fossil. It's a high-quality replica, and this is exactly what it's like. So I think that's one of the most exciting things about this workshop, is that there's going to be that opportunity for you to actually pick these things up and look at them and examine them for yourself. And I can sort of walk you through what they mean and where they came from and all the details that you've got that you want to know about. Those questions, I'd love to be able to answer them.
Nice.
Excellent. The workshop coming up October 26th right here in the St. Louis area, so you want to check that out. We'll provide the link for that in the program notes today as well, where you can look for the Adams Children website and find the link there as well, but we'll provide the link for that in the program notes today. Coming up October 26th, it's Saturday, the end of this month, so you want to check it out. You can meet Dr. Todd Wood, and Dr. Mark Ross will also be there and sharing in this presentation, Adam's Children. Thank you so much, Dr. Todd, for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today and for your insights on this and blessings on the upcoming workshop. It sounds intriguing, exciting, engaging. And so registration information is all available on that website as well, correct? We do need to register in advance, right?
Yes, you do. There's a lunch included and a workbook, so we need to have a head count ahead of time. So you can go to coresci.org/Adam to find out more.
CoreSci, that's like sci as in science.
CORESCI, yep, coresci.org.
All right.
/Adam.
You can sign up for the workshop there. It's coming up Saturday, October 26th. Our guest today, Dr. Todd Wood with Core Academy of Science and presenter at the Missouri Association for Creation Workshop, Adam's Children. Thanks for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Coming up in just a little bit, learn more about the upcoming Brew in the Lou event here in St. Louis, supporting Lutheran schools. Two perspectives, teachers' perspective, students' our family, parents' perspective of why Lutheran Elementary School Association is so important to Lutheran schools. Stick around.